Just summarize what we were talking in the morning. What we were talking was that we don't get real happiness from stimulating the senses, but we do it to avoid or to mask the actual suffering that's going on, to hide the harshness or the bitter truth of the realities. We like to just avoid them and get distracted on doing other things, so we don't actually have to deal with that reality. But that's not the way to deal with the problem. So when there's a problem, we must look into the problem and we must try to find a way to really solve the problem. So this is what Buddha was doing. He was teaching us how to really solve the problem of this death. Because ever since we are born, day by day what we are doing is we are marching towards the death. And so every moment we are just approaching death. So this existence is not a pleasant thing. And not only that, in the middle we get old and we get sick too. And that's not pleasant, and that's very painful to face as well. So like this, when you look at the reality, the whole life, what we do is we face these unpleasant things. But we really haven't tried to find a real solution, but we have been putting temporary solutions, or like putting bandages temporarily. So hoping it will solve our problem, but it never did. So this is why we are embarking on this path, trying to find a real way to find a real solution to bring this problem to an end, the problem of existence. So I spoke about the death in the morning, and we all know, I guess you know that innately, that there is no fixed time to death, and we can die at any time. Someone can even die straight away after they are born, or in a couple of hours, a week, after months, years, after 50, 60 years, anytime we can die, and that's the destination. When we are born, the expiry date is already there. It's just that we didn't look at it, and we try to cover up these facts. And we focus on enjoying the pleasant feelings, and that way we think we being happy. So now Buddha actually advises Venerable Rahula, because that's where I started this morning, so I better go back to that. So Buddha advises to Venerable Rahula to give these attachments to this sensual pleasure realm, to bring the suffering to an end, and to be free from existence itself. And when we are talking about bringing this suffering to an end, the path that leads to ending the suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path. And that I think, spoken in a lengthy way a couple of days ago. So where does this path end? What's the last factor on the Noble Eightfold Path? Samma Samadhi. So Samadhi is defined as first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. So we are talking about jhanas. So after you have started walking on this path, in the Noble Eightfold Path, your final stop is at Samadhi, and it's from there your wisdom actually starts to rise. Samadhi is like the foundation, or it's like that rocket launching pad. It's that launching pad actually supports the rocket to take place, to shoot. So like that, Samadhi is the foundation. It lays the foundation for the wisdom to arise. At Samadhi, what has happened is all the emotions have settled down, and it helps the mano part, or the rational thinking, to work on its own. These jhanas are pure states of mind, and it's the purity of the mind. So what does the purity means? It's actually the absence of five hindrances. They are called nivaranas, pancha nivarana. It's this pancha nivarana that actually covers the reality. Or what's in there is covered by this nivarana. Varana means avarana, means closing or covering it up. So it's this nivarana that's being covering the reality from you. So all these emotions. So all you have to do, you remove that nivarana and you get to see what's in there. So this is why it becomes so important to remove these five hindrances, the nivaranas, and removing it. And when it's after you have removed, and when they are not there, that's where we start calling it's the experience of jhana, or you are entering the jhana. Do you all understand that bit? Yeah. You all know about five hindrances. What are the five hindrances? Kamachanda, yes, it's called desire of sensual pleasure, desire for sensual pleasure. Vyapada, yes, it's called the anger or the hatred or ill will. Tinamidda, yes, normally it's called sloth and torpor, or the laziness or the sleepiness of the mind. Uddacha kukkucha, yes, and it's being normally translated as anxiety and worries. And vichikicha, normally translated as doubt. But Bhante clearly points out it's not doubt, it's actually the oscillation in the mind, or it's actually the tension in the mind between the emotions and the rational thinking. And later, actually, I'll show you why they have actually translated it as doubt. There is a reason for that. I'll show you. Later I'll talk about it. So when we say this oscillation, it means that actually mind is going from one end to the other end. For the emotions, it runs to the rational thinking side. From that side again, it runs to this side. So it's always in this movement. Our emotions pull in one direction, and our rational thinking actually pulls in the other direction, opposite. So there's this kind of a tension there. And so most of the time what happens in this tension, we get carried away by the emotions. So there is tension in the mind, and we talked about it last night, remember? In Brother Bilithan's talk, he pointed out very nicely. And also, he showed you all a very important clip, that what the scientists have found out. If you remember that he was talking about a RAS system, or reticular activating system. Remember? In that, it said there is this switch between your rational thinking part and the emotions. And it can be only in one side at one time. If it's this side, it's this side. If it's in the other side, it's in the other side. And it's like a toggle switch. It toggles between these two ends. Where do you think that this switch is most of the time? It's in the emotional side. It's actually switching off the rational side and allowing the emotional side to work. And he was showing, or the scientists have found the discovery, it's actually kind of inbuilt in us, because emotions were needed for the survival. That instant action was needed for the survival, so it's mostly that primitive brain has given more prominence to these emotions. So you still have that tendency there, that most of the time to go with your emotions than the rational thinking. So this is why Buddha was saying that we are actually going against the flow. Everything is designed in the evolution for you all to take you through the evolution, in the samsara. So what you're doing here is now actually doing something against that process. Yeah, it's like swimming upstream. You're doing something very difficult. But it's not an impossible task. It's possible, but it's difficult. Anyway, when you look at all the other things what you do also in your day-to-day life, they are not easy actually. Even finding food on your table. Maybe when it's already in the table and you are eating, you find it's, quite something that you do it easily. But if you really think about it, how hard did you all have to work to get that food plate on your table? Very hard. And some people even have to spend hours and hours in the sun and go and do this physical hard work. The farmers, you've seen in the paddy field, how much they have to go through to get that food plate on the table. So like that, when you reflect, whatever you do in your life is actually very difficult. But the trick is, I guess, if we want to, it doesn't matter how difficult it is, how hard it is, we go for it. So this path is also the same. It is difficult, probably it's the most difficult thing on earth to do, but if you want to do, if you want to really get to this destination called Nibbana, you will put up with it and you will go through all these difficulties and will arrive there. So first actually you must have the wanting. If you didn't have, or if you don't have any wanting, you will not get anywhere. So it's very important that Bhante also stresses this. Buddha always had pointed out that you must have a goal first. That means you must wanting to be there. A goal means you actually wanting to get to that place. So that wanting has to be there in you. If you don't have that, you will not get anywhere. So if you don't want to become a doctor, you will not study. But from the childhood, if you had that desire, I want to be a doctor, and that's your goal, somehow you will work towards that. So it's very important to remember that you must have the goal first, Nibbana. And then on your way, no matter how difficult the path is going to be, and whatever the obstacles that comes, it won't really matter, because those things you will see it as, they are normal, well, we just have to keep working through until I get to my goal. So that gives you a lot of strength and courage to continue. So this, going back to this Vicikicca is not doubt. It's, even though it's translated as doubt, now it's the wavering state of the mind, wavering between the emotions and rational thinking. So most of the time what's powerful is your emotions. Emotions are blind. So it's your rational thinking that actually leads you in the right direction, or that's where you will get your answers from. That's what's going to solve your problems, your rational thinking. So if your rational thinking, or if your intelligence is not powerful, then actually what happens? That's when you end up with doubts. Do you understand how it happens? If you are very intelligent, and if you understand something, you understand it, and then you won't have doubts. How the doubt comes to be is because you don't understand. Why you don't understand? You don't have the enough capacity to understand. You don't have enough intelligence. The rational thinking faculty is not developed. So if your rational thinking faculty is not that developed, what's actually more powerful is your emotional part. So in normal people, actually it's the emotions that's powerful. So someone may have understood part of this, and maybe that's how they brought this word doubt. Because I was actually thinking, what's the reason? Sometimes even for the mistranslations to come to be, there is a reason. So when you think, I kind of realize maybe that's the case. Anyway, that's my kind of explanation why people actually translate it as doubt. And when your rational thinking part, or the process of wisdom begins to start, this Vicikicca actually can't stay anymore. Because only when your rational thinking part is weak and the emotions are strong, that actually it can pull into the other direction. It still has the power to pull. But if the rational thinking part actually becomes strong and it has the hold, then the emotions subdue. Because emotions can't work if you're conscious of them. It's not something that's in reality, it's not so powerful as the rational thinking. What we really have is a rational thinking faculty working with the brain, and that's something that we can improve, we can develop. And if we do that, emotions don't have a hold. Because it's this rational thinking faculty, the weakness in there, the weakness in your thinking, the ayoniso manasikara causes these emotions. So if you fix that problem where in the rational thinking part, in the mano part, with yoniso manasikara, you won't get any emotions. So the person who starts the Noble Eightfold Path, who has the right understanding of the Dhamma, who we call a stream enterer. Did you all know that? It's a stream enterer actually who enters this path, who possesses the right view, or what we call the harmonious perspective, is a stream enterer. So in a stream enterer, their rational thinking faculty is now more powerful. The emotions don't have much hold. So they actually don't have Vicikicca. They don't have a tension in their mind like as a normal, usual Puthajjana person. So Vicikicca is one fetter that you break when you become a stream enterer. If you remember, there are 3 fetters that gets broken when someone becomes a stream enterer: Sakkaya Ditthi, Silabbata Paramasa, and Vicikicca. Remember? So when you have the right perspective or right view, the wrong views, that Sakkaya Ditthi, that was a wrong view that they were holding on to, that drops. And Silabbata Paramasa, now remember, after you actually get this understanding, your Sila is autonomous. It comes from within and it becomes Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva. Remember? So then the Silabbata Paramasa drops. Silabbata Paramasa means that you were doing this, keeping the precepts or doing the good things and avoiding the bad. Normally they translate as rites and rituals. You were doing it because someone has told you to do so, but not with your own understanding. So that stops. And the other fetter that gets broken is the Vicikicca. So there's no oscillation of the mind. Now your rational thinking faculty is more powerful, and your journey is moving with your rational thinking faculty, moving forward towards the Nibbana side, not entertaining your senses or running after sensual pleasures or developing emotions. Now you're working towards actually getting rid of even the little emotions that you have, you're trying to getting rid of them. Even if you have the emotions, because sometimes when you come to this stage also, due to your old habits, you may still have emotions from your old programs, but what happens, you actually actively don't develop the emotions, you try to get rid of them. All the time you're working towards getting rid of them. See, Venerable Ananda, you know, Buddha's attendant, Buddha's cousin. It says in the books, in the suttas, where in Mahaparinibbana also, that Venerable Ananda was actually crying. He was very sad when he was standing next to Lord Buddha when he is about to pass away. Because for him, he was his world. Mother, father, teacher, friend, everything. So he really felt it. So there is some emotions being expressed, but as soon as Buddha points out to him, he becomes calm very quickly. And there is another example where you can see this Upasika Visakha, you know, the foremost female disciple of the Buddha, Visakha. And once when she was actually serving the dana to the Buddha and to the other Sangha who was present there, someone actually comes and gives her a note. And she just carries on with whatever she is actually doing. And then someone asks her, after the dana, someone comes to her and asks, why that worker was rushing towards you when you are actually serving Buddha. Normally people don't disturb like that. That must be something very important. So what is it? So then she says, one of my sons, died. And she says, well, he didn't tell me when he came, when he's leaving me also, he didn't tell me. So you can see there, she wasn't actually moved emotionally that much. He was very strong in his rational faculty. She wasn't crying and lamenting and doing that. But later at a stage, when one of her grandchildren dies, she actually goes to Buddha and cries. My grandson or daughter, whoever it was, died and blah blah blah. So there she displays some sadness, some emotions. And then when Buddha actually points out to her that in reality, it's not only your granddaughter or the grandson passes away, everyone is facing that like that, and then very quickly she gains her normal, what do you call the mentality, or she comes back to normal, and that was the end of her sadness. So you can see even the stream enterers do have moments of sometimes, you being hit by the reality, but they can regain their balance very quickly. That's the difference, because they don't keep on working on developing their emotions. Okay, so there's a difference. Only after actually you start to walk on the Noble Eightfold Path, then because you keep on removing your emotions, that means you're training your brain and rewiring your brain, you start to actually have less and less and less reactions to the pleasant and the unpleasant feelings. And that state is called the Sakrudagami. Someone has weakened the fetters of this Kamaraga and Patiga. Kamaraga means the sensual desires, and Patiga means the hatred side. But it's only weakened. But they keep working on it, and they keep reaching the Samma Vayama and Samma Sati up to there. And like Buddha says, if you are practicing Satara Satipatthana, there can only be two results. One is becoming an Anagami, the other is becoming an Arahat. So when you become an Anagami, what happens? You actually break the fetters of Kama, Raga and Patiga. You don't react at all to pleasant sensations and to unpleasant sensations. So pretty much there's no emotions to be detected when you become an Anagami. So if someone thinks they are an Anagami, it's easy to detect. But if someone actually claims they are a Sotapanna or a Sakrudagami, very difficult to detect. But you can see from their knowledge of the Dhamma and all that, but very difficult to detect from outside. But if someone is claiming they are an Anagami, it's easy to detect, because they should not have any desires or any hatreds. So that's something that happens on the path. So when a person actually starts on this journey on the Noble Eightfold Path, they don't have Vicikiccha, and it's been eradicated from the beginning. So which gives you a big message about the state of their mind. And that's why when people are actually walking in this path, you find them, they are very wise. They don't make any decisions based on emotions normally. This is why their wisdom is being kind of venerated. When people know actually so and so is actually such and such a monk or a nun, that they are on this path, people have a lot of high regard, and also it naturally happens, people always go to them to solve their problems, so to look for the answers to the problems, because now their wisdom actually shines forth, because their intelligence is now developing in an exponential way. So this Noble Eightfold Path is actually, I see it's like a growth hormone for your developing your intelligence, to develop your wisdom. You have growth hormones actually to develop your muscles and all that. In the same way, when you walk on this path and you keep working on retraining your brain and letting it build up new circuits, there are actually hormones that helps this process. I was telling Brother Bilitan yesterday, not many people know this, we focus on amygdala, normal people, because it's so crucial for these emotional creatures. Human beings are emotional creatures, so they actually focus on this amygdala and they think that's the most interesting thing. But when someone walks on this Noble Eightfold Path, it's not the amygdala actually that becomes more important. What becomes more important is the pituitary. It's the pituitary then actually takes control over. It's a pituitary that works opposite to the amygdala. It actually started secreting hormones that makes you all feel calm and tranquil, and also apparently it helps to raise your neurons or the nervous cells even from the numbers. So I guess what happens is it increases your intelligence, or the chances for the wisdom to grow is there. So it's a pituitary that helps the people who are on this journey, in a spiritual journey. So it becomes very important, and a lot of research is being done on the pituitary, but unfortunately because not many enlightened people or not many people the researchers can find who are actually developed their mind to this extent, they find it difficult to find them, so the researchers don't find much about how it's really affecting us on our way to enlightenment. Not 100%. But Dalai Lama is helping a lot of the researchers, because Dalai Lama has a lot of meditators, very good, profound meditators. So the research being done on a lot of these monks. Yeah. Yes, there's many research being done. So come back to our topic. So what it means now, this person who starts walking on the Noble Eightfold Path, the stream enterer, has their rational thinking part controlling the emotions. And now no longer the emotions are in control of them as in a normal lay person. And you saw when it comes to the evolution, actually the normal people's amygdala is a more powerful thing in the brain. Like the messages actually reach amygdala faster than it goes into the frontal cortex. And that's one of the reasons why actually people can't really be making decisions in a rational way when they are faced with a lot of the calamities, because this wiring has been done in that way, and they were showing it why, remember? Because your survival is more important. So we are kind of the victims actually from our even hard wiring. And it's good to know all these things, because when you know these things, you can actually work. It inspires you all to work, and you know why it's so difficult to walk on this path. Why all the time actually you lose to your emotions, or you give in to your emotions. So then you don't have to keep beating on yourself, you know why. And then all you have to do is keep working it to break that old habits and strengthen your rational thinking part. So when the Vicikiccha is in someone's mind, so the mind is then not in one direction, so it's pulled into two opposite directions. Meaning of the ekagata, or one-pointedness, means to have the mind in one direction. See, when it's coming to the I think they had a problem over there too. Never mind, you all can hear me like this, right? So maybe if you could open the curtain a bit for me.
Now it's still full.
That's enough. Okay, thanks. That's enough. Yes. Psychopaths, yeah. Mm-hmm. No. What they are saying is they are insensitive to their emotions, or they don't have loving kindness. The act of killing itself starts from an emotion, from hatred or from something. But they don't have kind of a sympathetic way of looking at the others, or in a loving kindness, or in a kind way to look at others. So they are saying they are very insensitive to others' feelings. Not that these people don't have emotions, they do. And in fact now the scientists are even tracing that this this desire to do crimes is actually in your DNA. They have actually found out, traced some in your chromosomes, some that pattern that corresponds to criminals. So if you have that, you have a tendency to act on it. Yes. So they get passed on to you. But that's also you can consciously control. So they have found actually 3 Thai forest monks actually who have that criminal, what do you call it? I'm trying to look for the word. Gene. That gene that corresponds to that criminal activity is in them, but they don't do any harm to anyone. I mean, they are very good practitioners. And there are some people, sometimes, instantly they act on emotions and they can do crimes. But if you keep doing it, that means it gets programmed to you and it gets passed on to your children and it goes through the generations. So this is why whatever you keep on doing, it becomes a habit, and it becomes actually get engraved into your DNA. And even then it gets even passed on to your next generations. So most of your emotional things, actually those patterns, the more the science develops, they will find that they even in the genes, because this is how we being developing that over a period of time. So anyway, going back to this ekaggata, when normally the mind is split into 2 directions, but when it comes to this jhanas, we are talking about an ekaggata. Do you recall a word ekaggata, or one-pointedness? Okay. So what it means mind is now in one direction. So when the mind is purified from all the emotions and from all these 5 hindrances, mind remains still. And then we can act according to our reasoning faculty, according to our reasons and according to our rational thinking faculty. That's what ekaggata means. Mind in one direction. Eka means one. Agra means end. Agga means end. So ekagga means one-ended. So this is what it means in the, it's pointing into one direction. Before it was kind of split. It had two ends, splitting. But now it's pointing to one direction. So that is the purification of mind. And when the mind is purified, our thinking process is simply the formation of concepts in the form of a question and answer, not in the emotional way. Normally, your thoughts are influenced by the emotions, or they are emotional thoughts. But when the mind comes to this ekagata, they are no longer they are not emotional thoughts. It's only pure concepts, because now we are working, our mind is kind of working at that mano level. It's not going to that chitta side. Remember that chain reaction? So you're pretty much working at the mano level now. So what's being formed in the mind is pure thoughts, or this just the pure concepts. There's no emotions attached to it. So these thoughts come in the form of question and answer. That's what we called vitakka vichara. Yes, inquiry, inference and inquiry. It's like we can ask, what is this? And we can say, that's in-breath. You can ask, what is this? The answer will come, this is out-breath. So you can see they are very simple, very direct thoughts at that moment. So that ability is called the vitakka vichara, the ability to think. And like that, there are simple thoughts and concepts getting formed in the mind, and it happens when you want to do it. It's not like that stray thoughts going on and off all the time. This is only in your direction. It works when you direct it to work, and you do have the ability to think if you want to think. So it's very important for you all to understand that they are not like these emotional thoughts or stray thoughts. They are only there when you, that ability is there, and only when you want to think that these thoughts will come. So now the mind is free of all these emotional thoughts, and we find only these calming thoughts. When the mind is purified and tranquil in this way, the mind feels very happy, and we call that happiness as piti. You have heard that word, the priti? Then that happiness is observed, and with that happiness, body actually relaxes. And that feeling of that relaxation, we call that is passaddhi. And when the body relaxes, when you have this passaddhi, one begins to feel very comfortable. And this comfortable feeling is called sukha. So priti is to do with your mind, or how you feel in your mind. And this sukha refers to the bodily comfort, how you feel your body. And when the body is comfortable, the mind becomes still, and it gets more and more chance to get more calm and more still. At this stage, when this is happening, your mind is not going to go anywhere, but it will stay within. If you all had good meditation, you will know that when your meditation is going well and you are feeling so calm and so still, you got no interest about whatever the sounds that's coming in through your ears, or whatever is happening, you got no interest. You're so absorbed within, because you're so comfortable and calm, and your interest stays in there. And when this is happening, we call they have reached that yes, so you are actually entering the jhanas at this stage. So when you experience in this calmness, another way to kind of explain or to put it to words is they express it by saying ekagata. The mind is ekagra. Mind is so still and calm. There's no movements.
This five qualities, then you have the five develop to the fifth one, you're in
Yes, so at the end, one by one, you just come and end up here. The mind is just resting there, so calm and so peaceful. And when you experience these five things, what we call this vitakka, vichara, priti, sukha and ekagata, we say you are entering the first jhana. So if you look at that chart, you can see all the jhanangas there on the first jhana. So when you remove the five hindrances, what happens? They get replaced with these five jhanangas. And this is how you know you are in a jhana. When you experience these jhanangas, you know you are in a jhana. And you can now further calm down your mind beyond that. The next thing what's going to happen when you're calming down is the conceptual thinking starts to kind of diminish, and then it stops. But you are aware of everything, but no thinking. So that's when we are entering the second jhana. So there is little bit more calmness than to the first jhana, because now the thinking has stopped. We call it vachi sankara. You may have heard. The vachi sankara stops at the second jhana. And second jhana is more peaceful and stable than the first jhana. You can see that vitakka vichara is not present in the second jhana there. Now we can calm the mind beyond that. And now you are aware of the things, but don't think. So what's left? Now the vitakka vichara is taken out, and what's left is the priti, sukha and ekagata is in the second jhana. And now you can calm down it further, and then what happens? Even the happiness stops. So what's left is the sukha, that feeling of bodily comfort, and the ekagata. Why is this happiness is stopped here? Not that it's emotional as in the negative way, but it is kind of a movement in the mind. And at this stage, compared to this peacefulness, this happiness is seen as a disturbance. Because it is a movement in the chitta. There is some kind of a movement. So the meditator wishes to stop that also. So then priti also stops, and the mind calms further, and all what you have is now the feeling of the that comfortable feeling of the body, the sukha and the ekagata. And then you can calm down your mind further, and that comfort also then start to disappear. But it doesn't mean that you become uncomfortable, that you are just doing that to see what's going on. But it doesn't mean you become uncomfortable. Both comfort and discomfort has disappeared. That's all. So it's just a neutral feeling. So with that, what's there is the stillness of the mind, and now it's 100% focused within, because there is no movement at all. Not single movement that's happening now. This is the time what we call you're entering the fourth jhana. Even after the sukha has been given up. But I think I missed the point, the third jhana, did I? No, huh? I told in the third jhana you still feel sukha and ekagata. So you give up the third, the sukha when you come to the fourth jhana. Fourth jhana means you're stilling your mind further. You're calming your mind further. And all what's there is just the that stillness. And mind is so focused within because it's so content and it just gets focused within. And this is the time where you start to see now what's left actually. Huh? Nothing? Have a look at that chart. So what's there? If there's only
there's nobody.
That ekagata is there, the peacefulness is there, but how do you know about that peacefulness? What's there? Is there awareness there?
Awareness there. Awareness.
So what is the process of the awareness? Panchakanda. So that is still working. So Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana is still working. Even though you being shutting down part by part, still the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana is there.
Does the Panchakanda give rise to a self still?
Sorry, does it give rise to?
Self.
No, that's not what gives rise to the self. It's our emotions actually gave rise to the feeling of self. The concept of self was given rise by these emotions, not by the Panchakanda. This is why you can actually undo that mistake in this fourth jhana. So remember, fourth jhana is called Upekka, and in the Noble Eightfold Path, the eighth factor is Samma Samadhi, but Samadhi is defined at first, second, third, fourth jhana, and it's a fourth jhana in the 7 factors of enlightenment, the last factor, Upekka. So it's here you start to see the activity of the Panchakanda, and you can undo that, whatever that you were believing before. You start to see now there's no person doing it, it's only an activity. So rationally you start to understand it. Your wisdom is there for you to be able to see it and to be able to understand. It becomes your own experience.
In other words, to understand it from within and not through reading a book.
No. But you must have heard about this from someone. Otherwise you won't know what to look for in that state. You want me to put the mic on, or you are happy like this?
I think the mic is better.
Mic is better.
More power, more energy.
I think no, it has to go up this way. This one has to turn. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think it's loose. Never mind. Okay.
Don't understand.
So even after I'm explaining so slowly, you don't understand?
No, I think
Which part don't you understand?
when you come up to fourth jhana,
Yes.
we are still talking about Rupa and all the 5
Aggregates are there.
cumulative.
Cumulatives are there.
in other words, the reality is even for someone who is at fourth jhana, they are still affected by the cumulatives.
Yeah, your perception is still working at the fourth jhana.
But how are you going to see process of perception when you're going to see the process of perception?
So, when you come to the fourth jhana, what's not there is that all emotional excitement, even the most subtle ones, have stopped there. Also, remember that when we talk about mind, that there are three main parts to the kind of the activity of the mind: the chitta, mano, and the vijnana part. So here the vijnana is working. Working of vijnana is there; it's untouched. I actually wanted to talk about the chitta, mano, and vijnana, but never mind. You all have heard it so many times. And chitta refers to emotional part, and mano refers to thinking part, your verbal part, and vijnana refers to the perception part, the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing. So thinking part is verbal, means we actually thinking words and form concepts, and every concept is a verbal expression in the form of a sentence. Yes? Okay, you understand that. So it doesn't mean we are talking or actually producing sounds, but at this level it's only that silent thinking that's going on in our mind. So the mano is the thinking process, which is the activity of the brain. Mano is the activity of the brain. In the second jhana, this thinking activity stops. Remember I told you before? And when we enter the fourth jhana, the emotional part also stops, the chitta. Even the more subtle emotions like the priti and sukha just disappears. So this is where you can find the perfect stillness of the mind in the fourth jhana.
How about the memory? The memory and the papancha, because the past memory and papancha are still affecting.
No. Vitakka vichara is gone. There's no forming of thoughts. The perception is there and your awareness is there. Vachi Sankara has stopped at the second jhana. Vitakka Vichara, Vachi Sankara stops at the second jhana. And fourth jhana, there is something that happens, Kaya Sankara stops. If you all have heard something about a Kaya Sankara. Breathing also stops at the fourth jhana. Because you may have realized actually breathing is like a reflection of your emotions. When you are going through a lot of emotions, your breathing is very heavy. And when you settle your mind, the breathing also settles down and it becomes very subtle. Now when there is no emotions at all, so the breathing also stops. And what going on in that person is what we call the respiration. And Bhante explains it very nicely. The breaking down of the oxygen, carbon dioxide, and C6H12O6, what we call that, the sugar molecules, carbohydrates, or what do you call? Sugar molecules, yeah? Breaking down of these sugar molecules take place, releasing the carbon dioxide and H2O. Huh?
Just like plants.
Yeah. Just the respiration that takes place. And you don't really breathe in or breathe out. And that stage, pretty much you got no activity going on, so you don't actually waste much energy. So there's no need to really have oxygen at that stage. You can survive from whatever that's in there. That's already in the body is enough to keep the body running. But it says you only can actually stay in this stage maximum 7 days. You can't survive after that. You have to come out of it. I guess whatever the reserves in your body runs out. So you have to come out the 7th day. So it's a very, 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 very still stage where I think you can't even imagine how still it is. Huh? Yes? It can be even further. You can practice calm the mind down further. So it can be people who are actually who have calmed the mind further. And when you actually come to these states of mind, you don't need even the gross food to support. Gross food actually doesn't really help us. As you know, it even produces a lot of antioxidants, which we don't want. What you call the oxidized parts. And so this is why you are taking the antioxidants, because this breaking down process doesn't really help us. So a lot of these yogis who live for 100 years, more than 100 years, 500,000 years like that, actually they don't eat the normal food. They are depending on the energy that they get from the sun and all that. That's how they have managed to kind of arrest the normal system, but just go on living on with this energy, with a pure mind. But they are not, they haven't ended the suffering, they are still bound with the suffering. That's the thing. Because if they had the understanding, they would know it's not about living 1,000 years actually that really the real achievement. So you can see that their path hasn't started from Noble Eightfold Path. It's only the purification of my mind that has taken place. Arupa jhanas, yes, they do have sense of likeness to that Rupa jhanas or Arupa jhanas. They are there, but it's don't get mixed up with it as a sensual pleasure. I mean, desire for sensual pleasure. This is different, because this comes from the purity of mind. So from this point onwards, from the 4th jhana, again you can keep calming down your mind. Now what you start to calm down from here is your cognitive process. Process of perception, vijnana. See, can you see there? From the 4th jhana, that whatever that I have written there, things are running this way. So that's where the arupa ayatana or the realms starts. And that's when the perception process starts to calm down. Okay? So you can show them. That's a good idea. Maybe slightly angle it so I also can see and point. Okay. No, never mind. Yeah, that's enough. Can you all see? See, in the 4th jhana, you have still Rupa there. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. See that? On the 4th jhana. Can someone come and point it? See? Show them the 4th jhana. That's okay. That's a good idea. Okay. But can they see? Can you all see? See, that's where the 4th jhana is. Ekaggata, and there is this perception working, Rupa, Vijnana, Sanya, Sankara, Vedana, Sanya. And then what happens when you come to this, when you come to calm down further, the first thing disappears is the Rupa. So you don't see anything. So even if you open your eyes, you don't see any objects. The mental images, that process is calmed down. That stopped. So all, whoever is in that state sees is the empty space. That is why it's called realm of infinite space, or it's called akasanang chayatane. Emptiness means there's only space. That's what it means. Because there's no mental images anymore. And then you can calm your mind beyond that. And now you give up even seeing the empty space. And then when that happens, you are simply aware of that you are aware. Here, you're simply aware of your awareness. And that's all that's in there. Your awareness is focused on your awareness. That is called the realm of infinite awareness. Viññāṇaṃ chāyatana. You can see now this Viññāṇa also have disappeared. And when you calm down further, you give up even focusing on the awareness, and then when you give up on the awareness, you are aware of nothing. So here you are aware of nothing. Here it's called the akinchānañña chāyatane, and it's called the realm of nothingness. And at Buddha's time, there were people actually who have calmed their mind to that extent, and Buddha also learned from one of them. If you remember, there was someone called Alara actually has reached this stage of the mind, being aware of nothing. So actually Buddha learned it from him at that time. And then that was the highest stage that Alara Kalama has reached. But he said, I have heard there is another stage where you can reach. But I don't know how to, I haven't. So Buddha left that place and went on looking for another teacher. And then when he went to see Uddakarāmaputta, remember? He said, well, yes, my teacher have taught about this neva saññā na saññā. That means your threshold about the awareness, the perception, the threshold, where there is, you can't say there is Vedana and Sañña, you can't say there is no Vedana and Sañña. So it's called the realm of neither sensation, no sensation. So Uddakarāmaputta said, well, I haven't experienced that myself, but my teacher actually is someone who experienced it, and I can tell you what my teacher taught me. So he taught, at that time it was ascetic Gautama. So then Bodhisattva learned, and he actually managed to attain to that state, to the verge of the threshold of the awareness. And then this Uddakarāmaputta even invited him saying, can you please stay here and I'll treat you as my teacher and also you can take care of all these students and stay here. But Bodhisattva wasn't happy. He said, no, I must, I'm not satisfied here. I want to try further. I'm not satisfied. So he left that place and then he started doing it his own. This is when he found that 5 ascetics. And then he tried this asceticism, which called the Atta Kilamatana Yoga, and he tried the opposite as well, but nothing worked. So when he was practicing this asceticism, he even tried to kind of stop his breathing. He fasted, he stopped his breathing, did everything, but nothing happened. So he gave up all that, and then he started to actually relax a bit. He started taking meals, and then he gained some strength in his body, and then he actually started to relax and focus on his breath and started meditating. And this is the time where he was actually in Bodh Gaya. And he remembered when he was little how he attained the first jhana, by relaxing the body and focusing on the breath and relaxing the body. So using that, then he attained first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Then he come to this realm of infinite space, then to the realm of infinite this awareness, and then to the realm of nothingness, and then to the realm of neither sensation, no sensation. And then after that he actually went beyond, where he experienced nothing. That state is called the Sanya Vedaita Nirodha. Sanya Vedaita Nirodha. Nirodha means stopping, getting rid of it. So there's nothing at all in here. So then after that he come back from that state. That's when he started to actually realize, so there's really nothing. Because he went to this state, that's when he realized there's nothing at all fixed. You know, that time people were thinking there is a soul and everything. But he realized there's no such a static thing or a fixed thing or someone. No Atma, yes. Yeah. So after he reached this cessation of sensation and feeling, that was the end of the journey. Now from there onwards he couldn't go any further because mind has stopped completely. So it's at that moment that he realized the mind has stopped completely. Not at that moment, after he come out from it, realize that that's the final place. When actually a person enters this state, and arahats can do that. Yesterday you were asking about Vedana and Sanya. Remember the some questions? So that's why I thought maybe today I'll talk about this. The arahats, they can do this on their will. They can attain to this Nirodha Samapatti as and when they wish. And with this state, when a person enters this state, they are like a dead person, because there is no activity at all. But the only difference is that there is heat and temperature in this person, and the metabolism is still going on. But you can't find that in a dead person. So it's called the Ayu Sankara. What keeps us alive, just that bit is there. And the metabolism is there. And this also, you can't stay for too long. They have to come back. And they can go back in there, they have to come back. Because body will only survive, I guess, in the reserves. So when the reserves get depleted, then they will actually die. So there is a limit, there's a time period for this where you can stay and then you have to come out. So after actually Buddha came out from this state, then he actually, like climbing down the ladder, he went from here to here, here to here, like that, up to the first jhana. Then he saw how the mind works. Step by step, switching on and switching off, he saw how the mind works. And what really happened was, he managed to stop the mind and restart it again. So he saw that it is this mental process that creates the whole world. The whole world that we perceive is created by this mental process. This is why Buddha always says in many suttas, the beginning and the end of the world is within this fathom-long body. Because you create it. And not only that, with the coming of this cognitive process, awareness of the world comes, but then it starts the emotional part as well. After this, if you are not in this jhanas or anything, this activity of the mind starts the emotional part. With working of this emotional part, that's when this so-called personality come to be. Because we start personalizing things. If you are in the jhanas, that doesn't happen. When you are not in there, that's when the problems happens, when the emotions are present. So when you start to personalize things, that means you're beginning to think of the ownership. And that is to say, this is mine. When you say for instance, how do you take ownership of this pencil? I say it's mine. That's how I show my ownership. I say it belongs to me. So what we personalize, go back to that later, but what we personalize here is the emotions, the thoughts, and then we begin to form a concept of a self. Because what's there is for you to personalize is the emotions and the thoughts, the working of the mind, the activities of the mind. That's what's there for you to personalize. Isn't it? Huh? That's where the soul. Atma or the self, that's a concept. So this is how we form that concept of self. Did you all understand this bit? If not, I can go back and talk about it again, because it's important for you all to understand how we form this concept of self. It's the emotions that bring that problem. If you didn't have emotions, no problems. It's the emotion that make us to personalize things.
But does it mean whoever goes through this will realize that the emotion was what created the world we see?
Yeah. Now, we actually don't need to go up to here to get enlightened to understand that. The fourth jhana is enough. Because at the fourth jhana, the mind has calmed down to a level where you can see Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. But for the Buddha, he had to come here because there was no one to tell him. So he had to experience it through himself. But for us, now that we know that if you can get into this place, that's enough for you all to get enlightened.
Less work,
Less work? Yes, less work. You don't have to work hard like Buddha had done.
But wait, Sister Bodhicitta, but wait, if you have the wisdom, you have the knowledge, first jhana, you also can see the wisdom breathing.
Yes,
See
yes.
the pancha.
You can, but as you see in the 7 factors of enlightenment, if you get into the samadhi, naturally you end up in the upekha, because that's when the 7 factors of enlightenment will come to a completion. See, the hardest part is to get into the first jhana. After that, it's not difficult. What's difficult is getting rid of your 5 hindrances. So from first jhana to fourth jhana, it's like, you are in the lift now already. The lift will take you, yes. You press the right button, it will take you up to the fourth jhana. But you have to find your way to the lift. That's the difficult part.
So one day you issue the certificate.
When you get the jhanas, you do develop it. You don't have to come to all this. Even, when you have a pure mind, you can develop psychic powers. When you get rid of the 5 hindrances, you all can, if someone is interested, they can develop psychic powers. But they will only stay there as long as you have a pure mind. That's only possible through a pure mind. So I'll maybe go through again slowly, so you all can really grasp that it's the emotions, it's the starting of this cognitive process actually gave rise to the concept of self. Because that's important for you all to understand. So what you are
to another human being, what are we? It's very difficult, right?
Well, this is why normally if a normal person asks that question, you say, here I am. You point to your body.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Your body.
There you go. So
but
at the end...
Your body don't belong to you, right?
Yeah, that's very important
Your
to
body
understand that conventional part and the ultimate understanding.
Your body do not belong to you. It is almost impossible to see another human being and try to put this presentation. Maybe Billy Tan can.
No, the thing is, you can't do it yet because there's no understanding that had come from within. So you keep practicing, and then when it comes from the understanding, then you will see that for what it is, or this one for what it is.
Okay, today what we are listening is only theory.
Yeah. And so this is also just theory, but I'm telling you or sharing this with you, so if you happen to get into the jhanas, then at least you know where to look for, what to look for. It becomes the truth when you experience it for yourself. So this it's this emotional part that makes us personalize things, and that personalization brings the ownership. And then taking ownership means we calling this is mine. So what do we have there to personalize is your emotions, your thoughts, and then even the perception, even the Vedana you personalize. I feel this, I feel that, like that. Yeah, so you personalize everything. I'm angry, so it's an emotion. So those are the things you personalize. And it is this personality that leads to that concept of self. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So once we have personalized the body, and the body has become myself, then what happens? Because what you had is all what you had is your body, and the five senses were in the body, because this was taking place through the five senses. Remember, this perception started through your five senses, and where your five senses are placed is in your body. And you can see, where do you normally protect yourself the most in this body? This part. Why? Because you feel it's more important, because all your five senses are there, and that's where the data is coming from. See? Yes. And we protect this part, and we think this is the most important part, because most of the sense organs are there. And so when you personalize, what you personalize is actually your body, nothing else. And then what happens? Then we think of the past, the present, and the future. The past is the birth of the body, the future is the death of the body.
The present?
Present is you call it the life, whatever that's going on in here, aging and sickness is what you're facing in the present. So, and the birth of the body becomes then my birth. Yeah, birth of the body becomes my birth, because now you have personalized that body. And now the body has become yourself. Yeah, automatically. Now the body has become yourself. And if the body is the self, then the birth of the body becomes my birth. And there is something that happens natural to the body, that is the body grows old day by day. Then what happens?
I don't like my body.
So when the body grows old, you think, I'm growing old. You say, I'm old. It's the body that's getting old, but you say, I'm old, or I'm getting old. And when the body becomes sick, when the body becomes sick, what happens? You say, I'm sick. And when the body dies, what do you think?
I die.
I'm dying. That's where the problem is now. See? So the birth, the old age, sickness, and the death is a result of the thought of this I am. Yeah? So if yes, so it's also something we built up. It's not there, but it's a concept that we built. So if we begin to stop this personalizing, and if we are not carried away by the emotions, and we stop personalizing, then what happens?
We got nothing that is mine.
There you go. So straight away the body is not mine. straight away this body doesn't become yours.
Nothing belongs to me.
So if the body is not mine, the birth of the body is also not your birth. And then the aging of the body will not be
Not mine.
your aging or my
Not
aging.
mine.
Yes.
Yours.
And the sickness of the body will also not be
Not
my
mine.
sickness. And death of the body is not going to be
Not mine.
my death. Do you see something there now?
Nothing is mine. Nothing is mine.
So with the disappearance of the self, we become immortal.
We never die, what?
You were never born anyway.
Oh, there you are.
To die, you were never born. You got hold of this body.
Oh,
And that's when this birth of the body became your birth and this whole problem started, remember? But you were never born.
you will never.
So we become immortal, but this immortality doesn't mean you're not dying forever or anything. It's free from death. It's not eternal life, but it's the freedom from death. It's the freedom from the delusion of existence, and it's a cessation of existence. Someone wanted to, yeah? No one's body. It's just there like the trees. Who does it belong? These trees and this and that. Do we have to have a person who should have the ownership? Yeah, in the conventional world, well, we say that I, me and mine and all that. We do have to have a system. But the problem started with these emotions. That's why we have to show it how this problem started. But I guess in the conventional world, even an arahat uses me or I or whatever to refer to himself or herself, because there's no other way. But they are not personalizing, even though they are using that word. It's not coming through personalization, but it's only to the identity or to help to communicate. Yes, to keep the body alive. So it is this existence that we call bhava. What Buddha called bhava is actually this existence. The word bhava is being mistranslated. They normally translate it as, I think, becoming, because they didn't see this. They didn't understand what was going on. And this cessation of existence is called bhava nirodha. And bhava nirodha is what is called nirvana. Buddha says very clearly, bhava nirodha is nibbana. So now I have put this in a very short and simple and kind of a summarized version, and to show you the process of the awakening of the Buddha. So this is the process of awakening. And so Buddha actually got awakened from the dream of existence. And like Bhante always says, the dream, existence is a dream, and it's that we are dreaming that we are existing, and we are not fully awake. We are not fully, we don't understand really what's going on. So Buddha manages to wake, fully awake from this dream of existence, and I hope you all will also will awake fully.
Don't know when.
This guy becomes a student.
You don't know when, but it depends on how hard you work.
Still struggling.
So if you keep working hard, you can. And this is why I actually wanted to take time, and I prepared even some of these short notes and all that, so I won't miss anything on this path.
Very clear.
So when you understand this, it looks like it's possible, isn't it? Because you understand how step by step gets shut down, and so it gives you an understanding. This is where you are heading, and this is what we should be doing. And it's not something that you really don't know. You're trying to reach or do something that you got no idea. But now you got an idea.
Now you've got roadmap.
Yes, you got a roadmap. So in this retreat, this is what you should be aiming to. Get rid of your 5 hindrances. So it's only at that stage, if you can manage to get rid of the 5 hindrances, get into the first jhana, that's when you realize actually that in that state there's no sense of self. And that has to come from your own experience. Because there's no emotions there, there's no sense of self. And some people, when they get into the jhana for the first time, because jhanas also can last for few minutes, few hours, like that. It depends on how how you practice and purify your mind. Some actually gets very scared in that experience, because there's nothing to hold on to. So when they get scared, they quickly come out, because the pancha nivarana is there. And then you try it. After that, then you really become comfortable, and you really realize what's happening. And you also get used to that feeling of that happiness and the comfort, because that's something to look forward to. Because in all our life, we are holding on to things. So when you become nothing, it gives you a shock. Yeah? And if you know this path, and if you have been practicing, it's possible for a good yogi to attain nibbana in their death process. When you are dying, you got a shock.
I tried to die.
No, when someone is dying, these things will shut down one by one, one by one.
Oh, pushing.
In the death process. So if you know what's happening, then you won't get scared. You can let go and just finish it off.
Oh,
Because normally what happens,
only these stages.
yes, if you just let it be, that happens. But normally what happens, people hold on to something, and the vijnana starts from another side. Because you get your desires, or you start to do something, and that's where your mind is then. Then mind starts picking up, and you start all over again. You're in existence. Yeah.
If we stop wrong place, we end up in Arupa.
Yes, you will end up in the Arupa lokas called, there is this Brahma lokas, so they are called the immaterial worlds. Still okay, they are not dangerous. Long time, yes, you will be spending long time. Yeah, then you must try to do it here and now.
Good
Because
concept, good concept.
You got no idea where you will end up anyway. So it's best you do something here and now.
Here and now.
Yeah. But at least if you have been to jhanas when you practice, there is a highly likely a chance when you die, you start to resonate with that state of mind that you already have managed to calm down. And Buddha says, if you have been practicing whatever that level of the jhana, you are likely to get born in that realm. That realm means your mind will remain in that state of calmness. They call the Brahma lokas.
But actually,
Yeah. Yes. But there are certain lokas where you can attain Nibbana, Suddhavasa. Because anagamis can have that attachment still to this arupa immaterial attainments. So when an anagami passes away, they get born in that arupa state in a very calm and steady, pure mind, with a pure mind. And then from there, when that karma, whatever they had, that karma vanishes, they attain Nibbana. Suddhavasa. It's not in a jhana state, Suddhavasa. I'm not too sure from which arupa, but that I can't tell you up to what they have kind of shut down. And that's the only place also Buddha hasn't been to. So maybe that's why it's not been explained.
You can't explain.
Because he hasn't experienced it. That's the only place on existence or in this universe that the Bodhisattva hasn't been born into. He says all the other places he have experienced, including hell realms, animal realms, human life, Deva life, Brahma life, everything, but except this Suddhavasa. They keep calling Pure Land. The Pure Land, they chant the name Amitabha. Pure Land. No, looking from the theoretical side, if you only keep reciting Amitabha, Amitabha, Amitabha all the time, there's no chance of having 5 hindrances. Yeah, no wisdom, but they will have purity of mind. So they can attain jhanas.
Because a lot of old people, they don't have much refinement and practicing chanting all the time. They are also focusing on the office and
Yeah. The ignorance is there is no wisdom, but at least they will attain to the jhanas. Like I told you, that samatha jhanas, that comes up to on the 6th factor in the Noble Eightfold Path, in harmonious exercise. If you do the Samvara Prahana, you can get there. But the problem is that's not the end. See, at Buddha's time, there were people even who have come to this, but they were not free from suffering. That's the thing. This is why you need wisdom. This is why you need to know what you're trying to do. How did this problem started and how to solve it. So this is what you're doing here. Okay? Still happy to stay?
Very clear.
Yes?
in this stage, one can see one past life.
That's also another jnana or that some people might even call, it's not a stage, you can develop it.
It's sacred power.
After which jhana only one can see the past life.
I don't think there's any limitations as long as you remove your 5 hindrances.
Like a step by step, where you have attained for once you see 4th jhana, then you go to 1st jhana or 2nd jhana, and then you see the past life. So I have a friend who can see her past life, her 30 or 50 past life, and she reached her. But their method is different. So she has attained the 4th jhana, then she goes to see
So if they're in fourth jhana, why would they be bothering about training for this and that other than attaining arahathood?
Yeah, then they go to independent origination.
Mm.
They see the cause and effect.
So they should be enlightened, no? Is she enlightened?
But she has actually going step by step lah. Because I am not in that school.
This is why we have to be very careful.
You know?
People will tell us, people will teach us, or people will tell us, I'm in first jhana, I'm in fourth jhana, but they are not really the ones that we are talking about here.
But they check their heart rate once they go into first jhana. Whatever they see here, they will check through their heart rate. They check through their heart rate, but then the heart rate, they check.
Those methods,
The factors are all the factors. I saw her doing this. After that, then she was trained to up to independent origination.
yeah, see, dependent origination, we don't need to train, you see it for yourself. Because when the wisdom comes, you understand that's what's happening. And what dependent origination teaching you all is how this perception actually come to be, and this how this tanha gets risen from that, how this vedana actually, make that mistake, or vedana take you for a ride. And when you react unconsciously to vedana, the emotion starts, and this is when the emotion starts. Buddha says it's the upadana comes after the emotion. Tanha paccaya upadana. So upadana means personalizing. What you have personalized is what? That emotion and the vedana, the sanya, sankara, vijnana, all that. So when you have personalized, that's when all this dukkha starts. So anyway, well, I won't be able to understand I won't be able to tell you or make any comments about another person's practice, because I won't know. I can only teach from what I know.
I thought the Buddha had go to school, one step. When you achieve this, then you can do this and that. I thought that's something like already step by step. That's something I want to try out.
You can read the sutras if you want. So you will read the sutras, then you will find it. Sorry?
You can see the kalapas in the body. Let's say she checked her heart, she can see the kalapas. But for those people who have stronger concentration, they can see the organs inside have a lot of colors and all this stuff.
So you check with the sutras whether it's necessary to do all that, or whether this is the path to enlightenment, or whatever. You check the sutras and see whether is that what the Buddha's disciples were doing, and then you will find out whether this is necessary or not, or what. You will find out. Read the sutras, because a lot of those teachings what you are talking about is based on a book called Visuddhimagga. And Visuddhimagga doesn't really teach the same thing as what Buddha had taught in the sutras. And even some of the methods in the Visuddhimagga contradicts what Buddha says. So it's up to you all to get hold of a book written by someone else, or whether you want to go back to your Buddha's words. That's in the sutras. And this is what you find in the sutras, that Eight Noble Eightfold Path, and how you practice the Satara Satipatthana, and then using Satara Satipatthana how you attain to jhanas, and all that is based on sutras. I'll even try to get Brother Bilitan to maybe do this as a nicely written slide, so you all can have that one. I prepared the one I gave you about 5 years or 6 years ago. That's why the word perception is not there. At that time Bhante wasn't too sure, but then only he found this perfect word, perception, for the vijnana. Yes.
5 senses.
Yes.
Other than what's happening to us, is there any other external factors that put these in our heart, like maras?
Your own senses are your maras. When you don't have a guard in your senses, that acts like a mara. So this is why it's very important to guard the senses. Now I haven't come to that level because there were new people, so I have to conduct the retreat from the first level. So we were only doing the selective thinking to purify the mind. And today we'll also learn to do the Anapanasati, and maybe tomorrow we can talk about this guarding your senses and eliminating the memory images. So when you start doing the guarding the senses, no Mara can come through. You can send them back. It's your own 5 senses that putting you into trouble when they go unchecked. So Sangvara is very important. So there's no outside things. Well, when you're practicing, so many obstacles can come, and then maybe we can try to explain it in ways where people understand more. If you put it of a figure and all that, people might understand. Like when you were little, your mom or dad would have told you about a boogeyman coming and taking you, but it's not a real thing, but we say it to get a certain effect or an outcome. Yeah?
We are trying to blame it on something.
Yeah, that also can be. That also can be. Yeah. Yeah, it can be. Because that's how the Christians actually have built up their system. Anything bad happens, you are not responsible for it. It's a Satan.
Easy answer.
Yes. So maybe we are also kind of
They got the easy marketing tools.
yeah. So everything is within, yeah? Yes?
Do not simply believe
Yeah.
what you hear.
Yeah.
The Buddha said, do not believe what you hear, just because you have heard it for a long time.
Or what is written is the same.
Visuddhimagga is written by a monk called Buddhaghosa. He wrote about, I think, 1500 years ago, after Buddha's passing away, maybe after about 1000 years or so. Don't quote me on that, but after some long years. Yes. No, but people believed that he was an Arhat. The classic example is you take that book. It's called Path of Purification. In English, it's being printed. You have seen it? Blue hardcover book. Okay, now in the forward note, a monk actually has written that forward note, and he actually says this book is actually, it should be in our library. Maybe before the night session, can someone take the responsibility to go there and get me a book from the library? Or maybe I'll try to get it for you all. Huh? Yeah, I'll try to get it. You may not be able to have access, so you can have it for you. Look at it yourself, so you don't have to believe what I'm saying. Anyway, this forward note in that book says this book is written by Arahat Buddhaghosa at certain time period. And at the end of the book, when you read, in the conclusion part, there comes the aspiration of this Venerable Buddhaghosa. What is it? He says, I have done a great job. I have kind of collected all the Atuatika, all the commentaries. Do you know the word commentaries? That's written to the suttas. When people didn't understand something about in that sutta, they started writing, they started explaining and what they thought about it. So they are called the Atuatika, Tippani, like that. In English we say commentaries. So when he was in Sri Lanka, he went to study, I'll tell you the background how he ended up writing this book. He went to Sri Lanka, and then after he finished his studies, it was time for him to do his thesis. And so he started writing his thesis, and there was another agenda behind. At that time in Sri Lanka, there was a major argument going on between these Theravada monks and the Mahayana monks. And the Mahayana monks have written a book called Vimukti Magga. And that was kind of the book that everyone was holding as a very highly respected book. So the Theravada monks actually wanted to counter-argue about what was in that book. And this Venerable Buddhaghosa, he was a very kind of a knowledgeable person, and also probably we can say very intelligent. So after he finished his thesis, when he has to do his, when he finished his studies and when he has to do his thesis, the Theravada monks they said, okay, write a book to counter-argue that Vimukti Magga. So he wrote Visuddhi Magga, called the path of purification. And then after he wrote that book, what he did, he convinced the king at that time and also the monks, and managed to burn out all those commentaries, the original commentaries. They destroyed them. So that's one thing for you all to notice. And then, so after that, there's no way even to cross-reference or check what he has written is actually the same thing as what was in the commentaries. And the commentaries were in Sinhalese, in the Helabasa, means Sinhalese language, and now he actually translated that into Pali, and he wrote this Visuddhi Magga in Pali. That's another thing. And then, so he wrote this book. There's a couple of stories that happened in between. Anyway, finally, he writes in the conclusion, I have taken great effort to bring this book to this level. So treat it like a Bible. You don't have to actually look for this and that and all that. I have collected all that together in here. So treat it as a Bible and follow this book. And then he says, from the merits that I gained from writing this book, may I be born in Tautisa realm. Do you know about Tawatimsa realm? May I be born in the Tawatimsa realm and attain stream entry in there, and then may I get the opportunity to meet with Lord Maitreya, the Buddha to come, and then may I attain Nibbana listening to Lord Maitreya's Dhamma. So you can see whether he's Arhat or not. He's not even a stream enterer, just a normal person. And now what's being happening, when you practice the methods in the Visuddhi Magga, actually it's not conducive to bring up the wisdom. It's not actually bringing up the 7 factors of enlightenment. Even though he calls whatever he has described as this is practicing Vipassana or Vidarshana, it's not really actually what Buddha has been teaching or prescribing. So when people say today they are getting into jhana or doing the Vipassana, mainly they are referring to what's in the Visuddhi Magga. And this is why today not many people are getting enlightened by practicing. They keep meditating for years and years and years, and you talk to them to their families, you will find their character hasn't changed at all. The same way they get angry. They still have a lot of desires. Even the slightest thing, they get irritated. But they've been meditating for years. They still have a lot of sadness, sorrow, the emotions just going on and just developing. Because when you keep meditating also, the idea comes to you, I'm a meditator, so I know it all. So the ego also goes up high. So it's very difficult then someone else to come and help you. Anyway, you are not prepared to listen to anyone because you think you know it all. So it's very dangerous. Something very dangerous happened here. And Buddha actually says that, if someone gets hold of this Dhamma in the wrong way, it's like you holding on to a snake by its tail. Because you don't know until you get destroyed. Because only your ego, your ignorance, your moha all grows. Your greed and hatred also grows with that. No lessening of emotions. But now you can see in the path actually how you will see, if you are progressing, if you are doing it properly, how the emotions will come less and less and less and less, and how your rational thinking faculty will develop, and how you become wise and wise and wise. If no emotions, you don't get upset or angry easily. No. I mean, there's no nivarana there. If you're getting into the jhanas frequently, you don't have these hindrances. For some time, they will go away. These hindrances will be vanishing for sometimes days, weeks, months. It's that powerful, these pure states of mind. Not only that, even the first jhana. If someone has attained the first jhana, very powerful experience. And they last long. And now you being cleaning, pretty much what you were doing was cleaning your mind. And even if you stop cleaning, all of a sudden all these defilements just don't come overnight. It starts to come slowly. So only slowly you will loosen this purity. And that also you can notice. So the best way for you all to know whether you are improving or not, check with your character, check with your emotions, your thoughts, whether you are mindful, whether you can actually have awareness, you can place your attention in places where you want to focus, and whether you can sustain your attention. Those are the marks that you can see. If you can't, that means you have too much stray thoughts, too busy your mind. So you must know, not the others. Now there are many places even in Sri Lanka where they even give certificates. You meditate after a week. Yes, they say you are the Sotapanna, you are an Anagami, and there is a place where a lot of the nuns even believe they are Arahats. Because what happens when you do this meditation according to this Visuddhi Magga, you do get into a certain state of mind called the hypnotic states. And those states I actually asked Brother Bilichan to touch on it this coming Thursday, tomorrow. Because those states are the states of mind in between you're awake and sleep. So you're not awake, you don't have your normal rational thoughts or even that stray thoughts going on and bombarding you. When you're in sleep, you feel peaceful, yeah? Because there's no thoughts there. So this state is in the middle. So they feel very peaceful and calm, but all the emotions are working. And the 5 hindrances haven't been removed. They are there. But then they think, I'm in the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. And also there's this method in Sri Lanka that they trained. Okay, now you close your eyes and you come to the first jhana. Okay, now you raise your level and you go to the second jhana. Now you are in second jhana, like that. They keep saying, and the person goes to fourth jhana and they come down also like that. And there are hypnotic suggestions, and they do even feel that they are kind of going up. That's how they say in a jhana. They say, okay, I feel I'm going up. And when they give another suggestion while you're in the hypnotic state, you do feel You know, in the hypnotic stages, do you know that whatever you are saying and doing becomes real to you?
You mean the teacher that hypnotized the student?
Yeah. Not you don't necessarily need even a teacher to hypnotize the student. You can do it yourself if you concentrate on one particular point. You know, the doctors or the psychologists or hypnotherapists, they get the patients to be hypnotized by looking at one point. Do you know that one? So if you do it to yourself by concentrating on the tip of the nose or on your stomach or looking at a flame or looking at a dot on the wall or something, you do get hypnotized. And then whatever you give, your own suggestions, auto suggestions also can work. See, hypnotism is useful to cure the sicknesses. Because at that time, when you are in a hypnotic stage, there is no rational thinking. That faculty is not active. So if you say something and you believe it, you take it 100% as the truth, that manifests. If you can make someone believe 100% about what you are saying, that will manifest. If you say now you don't have cancer, then they won't have cancer, it will cure. Yeah? So it's very helpful in that state. But that state of mind is not helpful to bring up the wisdom. The rational thinking faculty is not working at all. And you can see in Satara Satipatthana, you're working your rational thinking faculty. Seeing this movement, seeing this, observing this reaction, how this thought gives rise to your emotions and how the emotion has an effect on your body, you keep watching it. Kayanupassana, Vedanupassana, Chittanupassana, Dhammanupassana, that's what you're doing. So you're engaging your mind, the rational thinking part. And that's what's going to give the understanding to your own self. This is what's happening, this is what's happening. So some certain changes take place.
At what state meditation on the brain? At what state the brain became?
Yeah, when you keep doing this Satara Satipatthana, the brain actually, the wiring, your circuits, they all change. Even the DNA change when people are actually on this path. And they all can be reprogrammed. And the scientists would say that today. That you all can reprogram your brain, rewire your brain. And this is what you're doing. This is what Buddha has been saying. You know, Buddha has been saying, if whatever you keep thinking, if you keep thinking it, you will become that. So when you're on this path also, he says, use this. Bhavito bahuli kata. Use this constantly. Use it over and over and over and over. So then you're making the new circuits. So you will become that.
What advantage is talking about the DNA? It can be found from this book, Functional Approach. The Form 6 science book, the Form 6 science stream, we study one book called Functional Approach, where the biology students also use in the degree study. You can find the talking about this DNA, where criminals will have short rules. Normally we have X and Y, but they have short of one part. And then, and funny also, they found out those people who take care of them, that means the police who take care of criminals, who punish them, they also have one part short. That's why they are very cool, they can beat and beat the criminals. Because they also have these pattern. It was found from this book called Functional Approach.
Yeah.
Study in 6 forms.
Yeah.
That's why I studied from 6 just show us.
Yeah, so anyway, if you even have a defect in your gene, if you practice this method, you can repair it. You can change it. That's the best thing.
But last time when I remember my grandmother also say this, if they want to get married, the son or daughter, they'll check whether their grandparent is a thief or not. Even though the girl is very beautiful, they will not say because they scared,
The genes, yeah.
down.
Okay. Okay, anyway, now we are kind of getting sidetracked and time is passing. So probably I guess I have covered most of the important parts, and tomorrow when Brother Biltan talks about meditation and retraining your, reprogramming your brain and training and this and that, it will make sense to you more. That's why I wanted to cover all this. So it's more like he will do another kind of, he will talk about not the same, but something similar, and hopefully it will inspire you all. Seeing even the scientists are saying the same thing. Because sometimes, people don't really care when we say Buddha said, it's like, oh, so who is he? But if you hear scientists also say that, is it? Yeah, because today a lot of people venerate or worship the scientists. So never mind, if whatever it's going to help you all to understand the Dhamma, well, make use of it. Okay, so today I have to do a couple of the interviews, so I will do it now. And now it's almost 4:30. Maybe we should do the metta today and start Anapanasati tomorrow. Yeah? No rush. Because Anapanasati also a method that, metta, also a method that you can, the one who practices can go to even 4th jhana. And Anapanasati is also another method that actually you can go through the whole range. But metta, if you practice properly, it purifies your mind, you can end up in 4th jhana. So don't underestimate the power of the metta. Keep practicing. So I will interview the people who didn't come yesterday, and we'll do it at the interview room. So if you have any questions, you can write it down and I'll answer it tonight. Okay. Sukhi hotu, may you all have a good meditation.